Right Honourable Speaker, according to Article 155(4) of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, Section 12(1), Section 12(1) of the Public Finance Management Act 2015 and Rule 144(1) of our Rules of Procedure of Parliament, the Committee of Tourism, Trade and Industry considered the Ministerial Policy Statement and budget estimates for the financial year 2023-24 for the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, and Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. And here reports to this House, Right Honourable Speaker. The Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities has entities with and without a vote status. Those with a vote status have been indicated by the committee, Right Honourable Speaker. The report uploaded, Right Honourable Speaker, for members to look through well elaborates all this, Right Honourable Speaker, but because of time, I am going to present a summary of the detailed report. Right Honourable Speaker, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities has vote 022, vote 117, Uganda Tourism Board, and the entities without a vote status are well stated. Uganda Wildlife Authority, Wildlife Conservation Education Center, Uganda Hotels and Tourism Training Institute, Jinja, Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute, Kasese. And Right Honourable Speaker and members, likewise the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives has got entities with and without a vote status, all clearly stated in the report. Right Honourable Speaker, the Tourism Development Programme under 2.1, the half financial year performance for 2022-23 is well elaborated. In brief, I want to say that tourism program covers Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, Antiquities, and its 5 subventions, which are well and clearly named there, Right Honourable Speaker. Ministry of Trade, Tourism, Wildlife, Antiquities, Gender and Equity Compliance. Details have been clearly stated in the report in accordance with Section 1311 E&I of the Public Finance Management Act 2015. The Minister responsible for financial, in consultation with Equal Opportunities Commission, issue a certificate of A, certifying that the budget is gender and equity responsive. B, specifying measures taken to equalize opportunities for men and women, persons with disabilities and other marginalized groups. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities registered a huge decline in gender and equity compliance with a performance of 70% compared to 80.6% performance in the previous financial year. This is a 10.6% point drop from the financial year 2022-23. Right Honourable Speaker, I want to refer members to Table 1 on the overview of budget allocation to Tourism Development Programme. Right Honourable Speaker, members can look through this table on the overview of budget allocation to Tourism Development Programme. At program level, budget for Tourism Development Programme is expected to increase effectively by Uganda shillings 24.437 billion. Notable increments of Uganda shillings Right Honourable Speaker, notable increments of Uganda shillings 40.793 billion has been made in the development budget of the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. Members can refer to the table above. And Table 2, half-year financial performance of the financial year 2022-23, Right Honorable Speaker, for the entire program, including subventions, Right Honorable Speaker. The table clearly elaborates in terms of figures. And Right Honorable Speaker, the tourism program is comprised...
Honorable colleague, when we are doing municipal statement reports, at least the figures have to be captured. Whether you capture total, but at least figures are very, very critical at this stage, because we shall refer to budget to go and handle figures, final figure.
Right Honorable Speaker, allocation in financial year 2022-23, the budget allocation to tourism development program adds up to 190 billion 150. And Right Honorable Speaker, the budget 2023-2024 in figures adds up to the total of 214 billion 587. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the change in budget for 2023-24 versus 2022-23 totals up to 24 billion 437. That is on the overview of budget allocation to tourism development program. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, half-year financial performance, which I had already read, in summary, in the table, presents release by end of December vis-a-vis the approved budget. The approved budget was 194,842 billion. The release by December was 95.568 billion. Money spent by end of December, Right Honorable Speaker, that's for the financial year 2022-23, July to December, is 76 billion 467. And you could read clearly the percentages as far as the release, the approved budget, the release, and money spent is concerned. Absorption release was at 80.00%, Right Honorable Speaker. Vote 22, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the ministry itself alone. Half-year financial performance, honorable members, for 2022-23 is as follows. The approved budget for the ministry was 166.309 billion. The revised budget was 166.59, that came through supplementary. And the release to the ministry alone by December was 84.005. Money spent by end of December, honorable colleagues, was 70.483. And the percentages, according to the approved budget, revised budget, and release, are well stated there in the table 3. However, the release spend was 83.90%. Right Honorable Speaker, at vote level, the approved budget was 166.309 billion. This was revised upward to Uganda shillings 166.59 billion, resulting from the supplementary budget of Uganda shillings 0.281 billion approved to cater for wages, for wage enhancement for scientists. Out of the revised budget, Right Honorable Speaker, Uganda shillings 84 billion was released, while Uganda shillings 70 billion was actually spent. The percentage of budget release was 50.50%. The budget spent was 52.40%, and release spent absorption was 83.9% by half year of financial year 2022-2023. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the Ministry of Tourism hosts 4 subventions, namely Uganda Wildlife Authority, UEC, UHTI, and Uganda Warehouse Receipt System. Those are 4. Right Honourable Speaker, the Ministry of Trade, Wildlife Antiquity changes in approved and proposed budget allocation. The budget categories are well stated there: wage, non-wage, Government of Uganda Development. The revised approved budget for financial year 2022-23, 166.425 billion. Proposed budget for 23-24, 187.059 billion. Change between the approved budget and proposed budget was 20.634 billion. Right Honourable Speaker. The proposed total budget allocation to the Ministry of Tourism and all its subventions is 187.059 billion. Right Honourable Speaker. This is expected to increase effectively by Uganda shillings 20.634 billion from the approved Uganda shillings of 166.425 billion to the proposed Uganda shillings 187.059 billion. Changes in specific budget category include wage and development, which are expected to increase by Uganda shillings 1.145 billion and Uganda shillings 40.93 billion respectively, while non-wage budget category is proposed to reduce by Uganda shillings 21.304 billion. Right Honourable Speaker, all subventions are funded under the non-wage category, whose budget has reduced. Right Honourable Speaker, Uganda Wildlife Authority, the table above presents out-budget financing. Uganda Wildlife Authority in the financial year 2023-24 expects support from development partners in form of grants and donations to the tune of 46.36 billion as shown in the table below. However, Right Honourable Speaker, the figures forecast in financial year 23-24 is 153.12 billion, and in financial year 22-23 it's 155.83 billion. Financial 21-22 was 117.75. For the current year 2022-23-24, 153.12 billion. Right Honourable Speaker, the observations and recommendations of the committee on operationalization of the Wildlife Compensation Scheme. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee observed that Section 83 of the Wildlife Act 2019 requires Uganda Wildlife Authority to establish the Wildlife Compensation Scheme, consisting of 2% of monies collected by authority for financing compensation claims. The committee was informed that although 2% of the revenue collected by OA is annually retained in fulfillment of Section 83 of the OA Act 2019, Section 86(2)(k) requires the Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, in consultation with the board, to make regulations to provide for procedures for compensation for injury or death caused to a person or damage to property by wild animal. The committee was, however, informed by OA that human-wildlife conflict has increased from 2,000 about 5 years ago, 2018, to 7,795 in 2023. This translates into a 289.8% increase. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. The compensation scheme was operationalized in 2022, and the Wildlife Verification Compensation Committee is currently considering 75 claims. The committee was informed that there is a general lack of awareness about the existence of this committee that has been constituted. The committee learned that OA is continuing to sensitize the communities about the existence of this committee. It is therefore expected that more claims for compensation under Section 84 of the OA Act 2019 shall be received and considered. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. We therefore recommend as a committee that OA should invest more resources in creating awareness to the neighboring communities. Our Compensation Verification Committee should fast-track compensation claims lodged before it in view of the backlog of 7,795 cases of human-wildlife conflict reported. 2. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, lack of adequate tourism statistics to enable effective planning for this sector. The committee observed that the tourism statistics are inadequate for the Tourism Program Working Group to make informed decisions that affect the program. We therefore recommend as a committee, Right Honourable Speaker, that the committee therefore recommends that the ministry should be allocated 2.6 billion for the operationalization of the Tourism Information Management System, which will facilitate real-time generation of tourist data for better planning purposes. Right Honourable Speaker, still on Uganda Wildlife Authority, on the matter of electric fence, Right Honourable Speaker, the committee observed that the human-wildlife conflict has been on the increase despite efforts to use electric fencing to stop wild animals from crossing to the communities. Right Honourable Speaker, in the financial year 2022-23, OWA registered a total of 7,795 cases, like I already hinted on. The committee established that OWA expects to get 10.46 billion from the development partners to procure materials for construction of electric fence in Magician Falls Park, 47 kilometers, Queen Elizabeth National Park, 47 kilometers, and construction of trenches in Kidepo National Park, 25 kilometers. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee recommends that OWA should prioritize completion of fencing and construction of trenches in all the mentioned national parks from the anticipated IFPA subsidy project under the World Bank funding. 2. Right Honourable Speaker, increase in sailing, expenditure sailing by OWA. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, Uganda Wildlife Authority is seeking an increase in the expenditure sailing from 106.7 billion to 140 billion in the 2023-24 financial year. The request is based on the projected non-tax revenue collections of over 150 billions Uganda shillings. The increase will be used in the upgrade of protected areas, staff accommodation, rhino translocation, electric fence maintenance, valley dams construction, and boundary surveillance and maintenance, and controlling the wildlife evasive species, Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. The committee observes that OWA already has 33.3 billion unappropriated non-tax revenue collected from the financial year 2021-2022. We therefore recommend that 33.3 billion be incorporated in the indicative planning figures for Uganda Wildlife Authority. On wildlife invasive species, Right Honourable Speaker, Wildlife Authority is mandated under Section 6 to promote scientific research and knowledge of wildlife and wildlife conservation areas. Consequently, the authority is working together with Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute, as well as Makerere University, among others, to conduct research. Furthermore, Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute is mandated under Section 4 to provide for research and sustainable development of wildlife resources, among other functions. The institute, however, is understaffed and has only one researcher. Additionally, the current salary structure is not competitive enough to attract qualified and competent researchers. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. The committee therefore recommends that Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute be allocated 2 billion to operationalize the new staffing and salary structure that will enable it achieve a center of excellence that is internationally competitive in wildlife research and training. This is very urgent given the need to undertake the required research to inform interventions to address wildlife management and conservation issues such as wildlife invasion, invasive species, and disease outbreak. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. On Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute, Right Honourable Speaker, the committee was informed that UHTTI has planned to spend 6.23 billion for staff training and assessment, admitting new students, students' welfare management. The committee learned that Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute spends Uganda shillings 450 million per annum on renting hostels to accommodate the students. The institution in its work plan intends to construct its own hostels on the existing land, which would cost 5.5 billion shillings. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. This, however, has been put under unfunded priorities. Now, since Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute is a hospitality institution, the students have to be kept within the vicinity of the application hostel, and thus the justification for provision of the required funds for the construction of hotels. The institute is pivotal in tourism and hospitality industry. Therefore, with adequate funding, it should be in position to churn out highly skilled personnel. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee therefore recommends as follows. 1. Uganda shilling 6.23 billion be provided to Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute for its planned activities as proposed. 2. Uganda shillings of 5.5 billion needed to Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute for operationalization of Institute's new staff structure and construction of students' hostels, which should be provided. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. 3. UHTTI reviews its curriculum to meet the current standards, which will make it a one-stop center for human resource for both public and private entities in the hospitality and tourism industry. Right Honourable Speaker and honourable colleagues, Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center, WEC. The committee was informed by WEC that on the matter of construction of a pier and wall fence, that the institution is soon getting a modern 50-seater boat through the competitiveness and enterprise development project additional financing to boost the Lake Victoria Tourism Circuit project. The committee was further informed that...
No, Chair, just sorry for the interruption. Colleagues, we have 15 municipal policy statements and we have 3 days. In fact, 2 days. Today is gone. Okay? So, if we give 1 hour of presentation and the debate, those are 15 hours. That would mean every day we do 5 hours. So if we are doing 5 hours, that's from 2 to 6 p.m. when a normal parliamentary session should be ending. So I think I'll be allowing only 20 minutes of presentation because we need to capture the figures. Then we allow debate because members have issues, especially the fact that they don't sit in some sectoral committees, but they have issues touching committees in which they couldn't sit. So Honourable Chair, conclude, go to the summary, final recommendations. The rest we shall dig in. This is the problem of a statutory deadline.
Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, on the Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center, the committee therefore recommends that a proposed Uganda shillings of 20 billion be provided to WEC for the implementation of the projects as listed in the report. I request members to look through the uploaded report. 1 billion for pier boat docking facility, 4 billion for construction of the wall fence, 15 billion for Mbale Wildlife Satellite Education Center, which is a regional center. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee therefore recommends that on the Training Institute, the Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute, the committee recommends that an allocation of 2 billion that is needed to operationalize the new staff restructure be provided. On vote 117, Uganda Tourism Board, Right Honorable Speaker, half-year financial performance is well presented in the table. Members can refer to. Proposed budget allocation for Uganda Tourism Board is stated in the report and well tabulated. Proposed budget for financial 23-24, 27.33 billion. Because of time, I'm not going through the observation of the committee. I therefore proceed to the recommendation. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the committee therefore recommends that government should provide 32 billion needed to enable UTB to brand and market the country. Right Honorable Speaker, and that is branding the Pearl of Africa and marketing our tourist sites using that. The committee also recommends that Uganda shillings 2 billion be provided for the procurement of a fleet of vehicles to facilitate enforcement and compliance to tourism standards, which will be done through registering, inspecting, and licensing tourism service providers. Right Honorable Speaker, this is arising from the observation of the committee. Honorable colleagues, the committee recommends for Uganda shillings 200 million to be appropriated to UTB, Uganda Tourism Board, to set up its own billboards. After the committee realized that Uganda Tourism Board is renting billboards, and yet the cost of establishing its own billboards would solve the current challenge once and for all. The committee therefore recommends 200 million shillings to be appropriated to UTB to set up its own billboards. The committee is of the view that every district in Uganda should have at least 4 billboards displaying what the country has to offer in terms of tourism attractions. And no more funds should be allocated to UTB for hire of billboards until the entity sets up its own. Right Honorable Speaker, recommendation number 4 is that government of Uganda should intensify domestic and international media relations to depict a positive destination image in regard to health, safety, and security in Uganda. And 5, the tourism development levy, which is provided for under Section 20 of the Uganda Tourism Act 2008, should be operationalized to generate more non-tax revenue for the tourism and hospitality industry in Uganda. Right Honorable Speaker, in the committee observation, we realize that this provision has not been operationalized, and yet the ministry had the mandate to do it to ensure that we are able to generate more non-tax revenue. So we recommend for it to be prioritized. Tourism development program and funded priorities are well listed there, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues. I'm not going to read through the table because of time. Totaling to the tune of 95.81 billion Uganda shillings. Right Honorable Speaker, source of funds the committee recommendation on areas that the committee internalized and realized that it's crucial for reallocation, Right Honorable Speaker, within the ministry. The committee recommends that 15.7 billion should be reallocated from government or subvention to Uganda Wildlife Authority within the tourism development program to OWEC UHTTI, UWRTI as per the reallocation table presented, Right Honorable Speaker. The committee further recommends that Uganda shillings 1.8 billion should be internally reallocated from Project 1701 development of source of the Nile phase to cater for unfunded priorities of development as presented in the table above, Right Honorable Speaker. The trade, industry and cooperative sector. Right Honorable Speaker, on gender and equity compliance is well elaborated in the report, even well tabulated. Colleagues can refer to that. The half-year financial performance for 2022-23 is well presented in the table and even the narrative. Right Honorable Speaker, the budget allocation for the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives is tabulated in this table number 7. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, total budget for the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative is expected to reduce by 55.163 billion from the approved of 137.927 billion to Uganda shillings 82.764 billion. Proposed allocation, specifically non-wage and development budgets, are expected to reduce by 31.92 billion and Uganda shillings 22.83 billion respectively. Right Honorable Speaker, budget allocation to the ministry subventions are as clearly presented in the table. Budget for all subventions under the Ministry of Trade is expected to reduce by a total of 440.05 billion. Significant budget reductions are observed on UDC, 440 billion, MTIC, 32.3 billion, UWRSA, Uganda Warehouse, 3 billion, MTAC 3.1 billion, and AGOA 0.45 billion. Right Honorable Speaker, the observation of the committees in the report. I proceed to the recommendation. We recommend that 1 billion is provided to the Ministry responsible for trade to initiate process for establishment of the cooperative bank. Right Honorable Speaker, on lack of tea sector quality regulation, we recommend, Right Honorable Speaker, that the committee reiterates its earlier recommendation that the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives should commence the process of reviewing and updating the laws regulating the Uganda tea sector. 2, government of Uganda should open a tea auction market in Uganda. When this is done, Uganda tea traders will earn more and the country will earn more foreign exchange. The tea traders will be in position to sell their products at less operational costs. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues. The unfunded priorities for the trade and industry sector are clearly presented in the table. And Right Honorable Speaker, it totals up to 40.65 billion. Next, Right Honorable Speaker, Africa Growth Opportunity Act, AGOA. AGOA provides duty-free access to the US market for over 6,000 products. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues. You can read through the observation of the committee, but among them, Right Honorable Speaker, the committee observed that in the previous financial year, the approved budget for AGOA was 550 million. However, in the proposed budget, the budget has been reduced to 100 million only, and yet is supposed to perform the mandate that I have just stated, Right Honorable Speaker. The committee therefore recommends that AGOA should be revived, capitalized, staffed to capacity, and made a funding priority of the ministry. This will give AGOA the opportunity to maximize the export capacity awarded to the USA government to Uganda, by the USA government to Uganda. 2, Right Honorable Speaker, the committee recommends 3.09 billion needed by AGOA should be provided. If more resources are allocated to AGOA, it will be able to increase more markets for Ugandan products to the US and other countries. Right Honorable Speaker, under UDC, Uganda Development Corporation, allocation of proposed budget under UDC is well tabulated, totaling to 37.22 billion. Proposed budget for UDC is 37.22 billion, out of which 13 billion is allocated to recurrent operations activities, while 23 billion 0.57 is allocated to capital development projects. In the table below, members can look through. The committee observation is there, well stated. I proceed to the recommendation. The committee therefore recommends that Uganda Development Corporation should be adequately funded during the budgeting process to avoid supplementary budgets. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. The committee was informed that UDC intends to carry out equity financing investment to establish packaging production plant. Right Honourable Speaker, we also, in that observation, the details are there. The committee recommends for that under unfunded priorities to be covered. The details is in the report, Right Honourable Speaker. The next table presents UDC unfunded priorities. Members can look through in the bigger report and be able to see the unfunded priorities. I proceed to Uganda Warehouse Receipt System Authority. Colleagues, the Uganda Warehouse Receipt System Authority is established under Section 3 of the Warehouse Receipt System Act 2006, hereinafter referred to as the Act, as a regulatory authority. The committee observation on their performance and every detail about them as far as budget is concerned is well captured. I proceed to the recommendation. The committee recommends as follows. 1. The authority should refrain from planning for activities for which it is not within their mandate as provided for in the Act. Therefore, we recommend strongly that funding should be provided for planned activities that are within the mandate of the authority unless the law is amended. All the powers of the authority under Section 5 of the Act are in line with licensing and licensed warehouses under the Act, and this should be the main focus of the authority. Right Honourable Speaker, I proceed to present on MTAC, Management Training and Advisory Center. Colleagues, the committee is concerned that MTAC has been operating without a governing council since 2015. MTAC reported that appointment of the governing council awaits the conclusion of rationalization of government agencies. The committee observed that the delayed conclusion of the rationalization process leaves governance gaps in affecting institutions and is affecting institutions. We therefore recommend that government should fast-track the merger policy so as to resolve issues of non-constituted governing bodies and ensure optimal utilization of government funds. Secondly, we recommend that the Ministry of Trade should intensify its oversight and supervisory role over MTAC in the meantime. Right Honourable Speaker, the unfunded priorities of MTAC is 7.4 billion. It is well presented in the table, in the report. Right Honourable Speaker, I proceed to present on Uganda Export Promotion Board, UEPB. Half-year budget performance of Export Promotion Board 2022-23 is there in the table. The approved budget for Uganda Export Promotion Board was 8.423 billion, out of which 2.23 billion was released, while 1.594 billion was spent. By half of the financial year 2022-23, the percentage of budget release was 26.50%. Budget spent was 18.90%. While release spent, the absorption was 71.30% by half year of the financial year 2022-2023. The proposed budget allocation for 2023-24 and changes between the proposed and approved budget is presented in the table. The changes is 0.003% only. Approved budget was 8.428. Meanwhile, proposed budget for 23-24 is 8.431. Right Honourable Speaker, the observation of the committee is immediate after that table, and I proceed to present the recommendation. Government should release the budget to Export Promotion Board as appropriated, and the funding gap of Uganda shillings 10 billion should be provided to enable Export Promotion Board effectively execute its mandate. 2, government should fast-track the merger policy so as to resolve issues of non-constituted governing bodies and ensure optimal utilization of government funds. This will then guide the Ministry of Public Service to carry out the necessary and pending recruitments. The unfunded priorities for 23-24 of export promotion is presented and well tabulated. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. I now move to vote 154 Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Right Honourable Speaker and Honourable colleagues, the half-year performance of financial year 2022-23 of UNBS is well tabulated in Table 10. Members can refer to it. The approved budget for UNBS was 41.28 billion, out of which 20.372 billion was released, while 19.328 billion was spent by half year 2022-23. The percentage of the budget released was 49.40%, budget spent was 46.80%, while release spent absorption was 94.90% by half year 2022-2023. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, UNBS had an annual non-tax revenue target of Uganda shillings 48.8 billion by half year. The actual collection amounted to Uganda shillings 24.67 billion, reflecting 50% of the non-tax revenue performance. Members, I refer you to the table below 8.1 on UNBS to understand it better. However, UNBS had an annual non-tax target of Uganda shillings 48.8 billion, like I earlier on hinted on. Table 11 present allocation of UNBS budget. Approved budget, proposed budget, change between the approved budget and proposed budget. The trade and industry and cooperative sector. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, because of time, I rush to the committee recommendation that Uganda shillings 2.2 billion should be reallocated within the trade sector from Warehouse Receipt System Authority to facilitate AGOA. Committee observation is there. Unfortunately, because of time, I cannot read for you to appreciate better. Then our committee recommendation on UNBS. One is that UNBS should be availed with funds amounting to 8.3 billion for a first enhancement of salaries for their staff in the science category. Then 2, UNBS should be availed funds for purposes of employing more staff to implement the mandate of trade facilitation, consumer protection through border control and standards enforcement throughout the country. And 3, UNBS should be availed funds to procure specialized equipment, furniture, and new fleet of vehicles. The details are in the observation as per the scrutiny of the committee. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, I proceed to general observations and recommendations in the trade sector to conclude with. The observation, Right Honourable Speaker, 1, access to affordability of capital. It's been a big challenge that the committee is presenting to this House. Furthermore, Uganda Development Bank, on access to affordability of capital, Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, in its 2022 June meeting, Bank of Uganda Monetary Policy Committee increased the central bank rates by 1 percentage point to 7.5%. Additionally, in October 2022, Bank of Uganda raised the central bank government rate by 1 percentage point to 10%. As expected, the tightening monetary policy has resulted in rising interest rates Lending rates by commercial banks are on a rise with an average of 18.4% as of October 2022. As such, Uganda has the highest lending rates in the region compared to Rwanda at 16.9%, Tanzania at 17.4%, and Kenya at 13.1%. Second observation, Right Honourable Speaker, is on UDB, which is mandated to provide finance in form of short, medium, and long-term term secured loans. Right Honourable Speaker, and cost of operation. The committee notes that the ever-increasing cost of rent, electricity, transport, and other operational costs have resulted into closure of many businesses. The fourth one, trade infrastructure, is an issue. Telecommunication coverage. The sixth one, the low electricity supply and connectivity has got negative implication on the trade sector. Right Honourable Speaker. Number 7, indigenous capital vis-a-vis foreign capital participation. Government laws and policies empower foreign investors at the cost of local investors. For example, the qualifications for incentives, according to Section 12 of the Investment Code Act, disqualifies most local traders and manufacturers from accessing government incentives. That's number 7 of the observation that the committee came up with. Number 8, cooperative societies. There is inadequate human resources in terms of numerical strength, skills, and experience, which is also affecting trade and trade sector. Right Honourable Speaker, the recommendations of the committee are as follows. Government should plan for provision of low-cost capital. UDB should be capitalized with the condition that it revises its condition to serve micro, small, and medium enterprises and to have sub-regional presence or collaborate with other financial institutions in every district. This will increase access and affordability of capital. 2, UNBs should be facilitated to develop, promote, and enforce standards. Right Honourable Speaker. 3, on trade infrastructure, government should invest more in infrastructure supporting trade, particularly transport and ICT. Right Honourable Speaker, under the transport, government focus should be on roads connecting to border markets and expanding major ports. Construction of roads and expansion of ports will reduce transport costs and increase market access. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues. Then under ICT, Right Honourable Speaker, funds should be availed for the provision of free Wi-Fi, especially in all cities and major business districts, and at least in every sub-region to facilitate trade on top of scrapping the internet excess duty. Effective ICT increases market access, enhances marketing and promotion, and provides a low-cost channel for searching. Right Honourable Speaker, proposed budget estimate for the financial year 2023. Right Honourable Speaker and honourable members of the August House, the committee recommends that Parliament adopts this report and approves the budgetary estimates for the financial year 2023-2024 under the following votes.
Honourable, I will need you to capture the total for each vote. Okay? Yeah.
For the financial year 2023-2024 under the following votes. Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, vote 022. 100 recurrent is 133,417,142. And development is 52,640. Uganda Tourism Board.
No, Honourable colleague, I need the total.
The total.
For vote 022.
The total of Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities is 186,057,142. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, Uganda Tourism Board, the recurrent budget allocation is 25,745,627. Development budget is 100 million. The total is 25,845,627. Right Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, vote 1-5. Under the recurring, 78,709,702. Development, 225,623. Adding up to 78,935,325,000. Vote 136. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, Uganda Export Promotions Board. Under recurring, 7,869,500,000. Development, under development, is 37 million. The total is 7,906,500,000. Right Honorable Speaker, vote 157, Uganda National Bureau of Standards, UNBS. Recurring is 45,567,420. Development, 6,651,000,000. The totals for UNBS adds up to 52,218,420. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, I beg to submit.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. You've led the way. Colleagues, other chairpersons, you've seen it. Number one, the figures have to be very clear, because we are going to adopt your report and refer it to the Committee on Budget. So we want to adopt when the figures are clear. So at the end, I want totals of each vote. You don't just show recurrent and the development without showing the total of each and every vote. Two, capture the report in full, so that for future reference to the Hansard, someone will see the report in full of the committee. Number three, specifically for this report, I kindly consider the final page on signatures, because the one you captured, the presenter of the report has not signed. But the one she read on the table, she signed. Okay? So I want all those details. They are very, very important in the future. We shall have a report where the presenter, the chair and vice chair have not signed. So who presented? So I want you to go back that page of signatures. Since she has tabled the report which she has signed, it's the one we consider here. So ensure you capture the one which is signed. So colleagues, I open debate procedure. Honorable Jonathan.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. In light of your guidance, since we shall consider the report, some of the figures that the presenter mentioned here are not captured in the report as she read it here, which I thought must have been some typing errors or minor omissions. For example, you have 100,000 shillings, but you are reading 100 million. So it would be proper now that you correct that to reflect the correct record, or you direct that the clerk captures the correct figure that she read, other than the ones that was mentioned.
No, the correct figure is, that was the correct figure, but they should have shown the zeros up on the table, that you add on the 2 zeros from what is written here. Okay? So I think it is very, very important for... That's why we clean up the record of the Hansard, so that it be captured very well in terms of figures. So colleagues, I'm going to open up for 20 minutes. For 20 minutes, so that we can go to agriculture. Procedure, Honorable Yeri? No, you speak in the microphone, my brother. Otherwise, you're communicating to me as your friend.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable. When the chairperson was presenting the report, he didn't tell us whether there's a certificate of what? Of climate change. Yeah, he only mentioned that one of gender. Whether he has or not before we can continue debating. Thank you.
Thank you. The certificate of climate change is for the whole budget. Can you refer to the law? Tell me under which law? I know what I'm talking about. The Climate Change Act is for the whole budget under Section 30 of the Climate Change Act. So, and it was tabled. So, but if you have another law which shows it's for each sector, thank you. So, colleagues, let's budget this. Members of the committee, please don't come up. Okay? I'll pick Honorable Wagahungu. You're not a member of the committee? So I'll pick Honorable Wagahungu. I need MPs also from the tourism-related areas. Eh? Okay. I will pick. Let me first pick a few. Don't mind, I'll come back. I'll pick Honorable Wagahungu. I pick Bugendera. I pick Aza. I pick Teira, Honorable Teira. I pick Amorata. Okay? And I pick Chivoga. I pick you. Then I'll pick you, colleagues. I'll do a quick one.
Right,
and the one I pick on this, I won't pick you on the next one.
Right, Honorable Speaker.
For fair.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much. I want to thank the committee for the work
2 minutes
done.
each, maximum crack.
And Right, Honorable Speaker, on a selfish note, I want to thank you very much for having visited one of the national parks. And the members of parliament, colleagues, also don't promote tourism outside, but also promote it in Uganda here. And visit, have a holiday in the national parks. On hotel and the tourism training, it is high time that we decentralize and we have regional centers such that we benefit from the training and building skills of our industry, tourism industry. Secondly, we is also the zoo. We should learn how to decentralize our zoos from, we graduate. We have the central one in Entebbe, but we should have regional centers where we should have, so I believe that the government should be able to appropriate sufficient funds for that. Mr. Chairman, although, Madam Mr. Speaker, although we are looking at conservation of these protected areas, but looking inside the national parks only does not help without also looking at the communities surrounding the national parks. We should also have a collaborative relationship such that the people are not endangered or the national parks are not endangered. And also on revenue sharing, we should not look at the revenue for the park entrance only, but we should also look at the general revenue in the park. On trade, I have seen that we are promoting UDC so much, but UDC is becoming more of politics vehicle than economics. We should be looking at bankable projects. An example is like the sponge iron in my place. No studies have been done, but the money is provided for it. So let us look at bankable projects so that we don't fail to do what we are doing. Another thing, Right Honorable Speaker, is distribution of the tourism data centers. How do they have a national outlook? Because some of the...
Thank you. Now, rereading through the report also, I was concerned. Human-wildlife conflict is an issue which we have been discussing here. But now in the report, we are saying tourism people said they are just sensitizing people about it. No. People have applied for compensation. You don't have money. Let's be honest. You don't have money. But also, these people don't desire for compensation. Let's go for prevention. You know, by the time you compensate someone, that person is hurt. The compensation sometimes is not adequate. You know, so why don't we focus on prevention? So I'm concerned when I see on page 17 that you are only budgeting for 15 kilometers of electric fence. Okay, 15 kilometers at 3.13 billion. This is totally, and this fence would prevent you from compensating people. People are not interested in your money. They are saying, protect us from the animals. Instead of you saying, let the animals eat, and then you come to compensate. So, instead of putting more money in compensation, why don't we put more money in in prevention of animals destroying crops. Yes, I had. Yes, Acrobat?
Yes, thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I just want to begin where you've ended. My concern is on the electronic fence. The electric fence, Right Honorable Speaker, you've started this electric fence, electric. I am sorry, electric fence.
The electronic one would be digital.
Right Honorable Speaker, is that in some national parks, this was already started on. Unfortunately, the animals seem to be very clever. Where you've worked, the animals now have avoided that area, and now they go to the other areas, and you've become so destructive. Right Honorable Speaker, like you rightly observed, I was looking for an opportunity in the report where the committee is going to recommend that the process should be completed all over the national parks. And I find this missing. I want to recommend, Right Honorable Speaker, that this should be taken as a priority. Because when we work on it, we will even be addressing the issue of compensation. Like rightly said, Right Honorable Speaker, the farmers, for example, who are neighboring the national parks, are not interested in the compensation. Compensation comes in as a by the way. We would want, Right Honorable Speaker, those of us who are staying near the national parks, to see that we work more on prevention than simply compensating us, Right Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Azza.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, and my dear colleagues. Thank you very much, the committee, for your report. Mr. Speaker, we have serious issues related to human-wildlife conflict in Dufile sub-county, Moyo district. Usually, very big numbers of elephants cross the borders from Nimule National Park. They cross the borders and come into Uganda in Dufile sub-county and wreak havoc. They destroy crops, they displace people, they destroy houses, and so on and so forth. So I'll be very happy if the electric fencing could also be taken to Dufile sub-county where there's serious issues related to human-wildlife conflict. Secondly, Honorable Minister for Tourism, we have Fort Eminipasa. We have a place where normally slaves were collected. The Karatumas will come to Buganda land and collect slaves and hold them in that place called Dufile in Panzala, and thereafter take them to Karatum. Those are the Karatumas. So I'll be happy if you could develop that place into a tourist center. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Honorable Agnes.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I would like to applaud the committee, the report, and specifically refer to page 45, where the committee has recommended 1 billion shillings to initiate a process of establishing a cooperative bank. And I would like to thank them for bringing back the discussion around the cooperative and the farmers bank. However, I would like to request that the Ministry of Trade needs to collaborate and partner with other agencies of government and not reinvent the wheel, because a lot of research has been done. One of the challenges they found was recapitalization of the former cooperative bank that led to its collapse. But I would like to urge the ministry and the committee to explore a bit more on available very many rural financing models that are in place. For example, PDM, Emyoga, we have Micro Support Center who are really doing the same rural financing models that this bank would be looking at. So my proposal would be that instead of Ministry of Trade looking at initiating a new bank as they have proposed, would like to propose that they consolidate, synergize with existing models, but also leverage on the available many rural capital that is in the communities, so that we don't really cry about capitalization anymore for the farmers and the cooperative bank. I thank you.
Thank you, Right Honourable
Thank
Speaker.
you, Honourable Taylor.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I take this opportunity to thank the committee for the good report. Right Honourable Speaker, the report highlighted a very big necessity and requirement for development of tourism sites and then publicizing our tourist attractions to the different parts of the world. But Right Honourable Speaker, there's one simple element lacking, and I'm glad the Honourable Minister is here, is synergizing the activities of the Ministry of Tourism with other agencies. Right Honourable Speaker, I'll give an example. After the transformation of Jagali Falls, what is left along that road is Itanda Falls. But even the road which goes to Itanda Falls, you just have to stop like 10 times to ask, where is the road to Itanda Falls? First of all, it's in a very poor state, but not even a signpost to show that this is where our mighty falls are. And when you reach there, it's a very amazing place to visit. It would require only the effort of the Ministry of Tourism to liaise with the local authorities to pull a grader through and create a good access point. So I want to invite the Minister in most of these areas to synergize with the various entities which operate within so that we create a good environment for our tourists. Right Honourable Speaker, we cannot promote tourism, and I'm glad we have had a discussion on the state of the roads in Uganda. I mean, a tourist leaving Entebbe Airport and arriving, and all we are awashed with on social media is the state of the roads. We should have a well-synergized approach to the development of tourism in this country. Otherwise, we are wasting a gold mine. I thank you.
Thank you. And we were told that they allowed Nyege to promote tourism, and it was at Itanda Falls. So, but no road now after Nyege. Yes, Chiboga.
Thank
then
you.
Muuma.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I have an issue with the naming of the ministerial policy statement, because if many more ministerial statements get uploaded, it will be disturbing for us to identify the current one for revision. But Right Honourable Speaker, on the issue of compensation, some of us are not near national parks, but were invaded by wild animals. I stood one time here, where, like Chiboga was invaded by white calabash monkeys that ate everything. When we approached Ua, they requested us not to kill them. But when we didn't kill them, they didn't come to our plea to help us. And the district didn't have a vermin control officer. And they ate everything. There is a sub-county which cannot grow anything. People just vacated and left the land. So it is important to consider the protection. And then, Right Honourable Speaker, we have a lot of tourist attraction. I am not supporting this issue of establishing new in-situ zoos in other areas. Areas have a lot of undeveloped attractions. Like my district, Shiboga, we have 4 of them that have never appeared anywhere. No development has ever appeared, occurred. So many of those new tourist attractions just need to be advertised and get known. And then what is the problem with operationalization of the levies from the different sectors? We shall see. Even the tourism development levy is not operational. I think we need to revise this. My last submission is on the Ministry of Trade. Right Honourable Speaker, one of the unfunded priority is the transportation of the commercial fish.
Thank you. I'm trying, colleagues, I'm scanning Sebei. I'm scanning because you see tourism area. Listen, I'm trying to scan it to see each region. At least is picked. So you first allow me, like I picked Kigezi. I started with Kigezi. Yeah? You know, so I want to pick Sebei.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Oh, and the traders. So if you know a registered trader, please let me know. Chemonga represents both. Switch on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the committee for this very serious ministerial statement, but I've gone through it because I am much more interested in this matter. Me, I come from Sabey, where we border with the national park on the upper side, and even on the downer side, we still border with the national park. And members are actually talking about compensating the crops. But for us in Sabey, we have lost people. Hundreds and hundreds of people. And in the statement, I don't see any plan to compensate them. We have people who need to be resettled, who have been staying around the boundaries of the national park for the last 30 years. I do not see any plan within the government to resettle these people. And because I don't want to take a lot of time, last year, we went to Sabey with the Minister of Wildlife. And the topic that time was wildlife conflicts. Now, the minister reached there and listened to all the people. He saw people with wounds. He even witnessed graves. He got all the stories. But up to now, the minister have never brought back the report to this house. Now, 2 months ago, we lost 2 people in Kwen and one in Bukwa who were shot by the UA officers because of still the fight of the boundary. Lastly, I want...
Thank you. Colleagues, this is beyond tourism. We have sectors to do with standards in this country. We have issues to do with export promotion. We have issues to do with banking, development banking. So let us try to widen. For example, on the issue of standards. Personally, I'm a manufacturer. One of the businesses I do manufacturing. We have a very big issue. How are you helping those small-scale manufacturers when the cost for standards are so high? And you find for each and every product, then also harmonizations of standards. For example, there's a product we were manufacturing, and the naming alone, Honorable Minister, just the naming alone, you allow products in the country with the names that favor importers against us who are local manufacturers. I want to give an example. We were going to do a product, and it was a surface disinfectant. And UNBS said, no, you cannot call it a surface disinfectant. It's against our standards. But they are allowing in imported products called surface disinfectants. And they are in supermarkets. Just if I can give you an example, Carrefour brings in a product called surface disinfectant. And clients, when they are advertising for those products, they want surface disinfectant. But for you, UNBS wants you to call it multi-purpose, I think, cleaning agent. But then I won't qualify for an advert in the private sector, which wants a surface disinfectant. And then you find some of the products UNBS is not able to even certify. You put in, they are not able because they don't have funds to establish laboratories to test those products whether they conform. They don't even know about standards. So it has affected manufacturers. Now you keep recycling, you can't be innovative, you can't be, and then they keep allowing in imported products. So what is the business community? Certification. Let me first speak youth. Yes, procedure, Honorable.
Speaker, the procedure what I'm raising is that whatever we say here goes on record. Some members are giving very good information. The honorable member from Ukweni has just said that they lost hundreds of people. A while ago, the honorable member, my friend from Chiboga, said people vacated the whole sub-county. We need to understand really, a sub-county was left, there are no people living there because of the monkeys. The others are hundreds and hundreds of people. Yes, we know there is a challenge, but when people say, okay, that these people clearly substantiate, because when you talk about a sub-county being affected by monkeys and the all people vacate living there as a property, plus the hundreds and the hundreds, our records, Honorable Speaker, we know the challenge we have, but let us have a clear image of this so that it goes well on our record. That's the question matter, Speaker, I'm raising.
This is what I've been trying to enforce. And then after, when you reach in the canteen, you start discussing me how I'm difficult. And it bounces back to me. You even send emissaries to talk to me to be a bit flexible. But this is what he's talking about. When you say a whole village, a whole sub-county, or hundreds and hundreds, you know? So I know the point you're emphasizing is that the impact is huge. But the moment you refer to figures, okay, they should be, you can use the language of we have many people, yeah, and all that. So that's a very good advice, Honorable. So youth, Northern?
Thank you.
Procedure.
Right. Thank you, Right Honorable.
Procedure.
Are we speaking?
Procedure here.
Honorable colleague, never access a microphone without my permission. Please. So you're wrong on procedure from the onset. You've used the wrong procedure of addressing him. Please, ask your procedure matter.
Yeah, thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I went through this report. On page 10, the figures which are there, since you emphasized on the figures, for the Ministry of Trade, MTWA, a total is about 187.2 billion. And the total for UTB is 27.3 billion. On page 75, which is the last page, which they request for approval, the figure for MTWA is 186.057. And the one for UTB is 25.84. Both figures have a difference, one of 1.2 billion for Ministry of Trade and 1.49 billion for UTB. Are we procedurally right or going on well with these contradicting figures? I thank you.
Honorable Chair, do you need a minute to cross-check?
Of the budget allocation, tourism and development program.
No, yes.
Page 10, Right Honorable Speaker.
Yeah. The table.
The table is allocation to tourism development program. But what I had him bringing on board is on trade. Maybe he can come clear on that.
We can be proceeding with the debate.
Okay.
And you have a few minutes of reconciling this. Honorable Herbert, you can come close here. I hope your clerk is also nearby to help you. Okay. I hope committee clerks attend here on the bench to help the chairpersons in such matters. So reconcile the moment you add up. Please, you inform us. You must tell us before we put a question. Okay? Yes, Okot?
Thank you, Right Honorable. Right Honorable, I've listened attentively to the report. And I have 4 concerns. One is that one of our core sources of revenue in the tourism sector is nature-based tourism. However, the greatest undoing, especially in nature-based tourism, is the state of our infrastructure, especially the roads, Right Honorable. And I think it should be emphasized that as part of the tourism development program, since we're in a program-based budgeting, safe access to these tourism sites must be prioritized. Two, is that also outside the nature-based tourism, we should deliberately promote culture or cultural tourism. I've noticed that we have very rich and unique and diverse culture, but we are not taking advantage of it. And that is why programs or festivals like Nyege Nyege end up taking advantage of that particular vacuum. Thirdly, for as much as we intend to set up billboards in every district, Right Honorable, I think digital.
Thank you. Anyone going to speak outside tourism? Honorable Roran, Honorable Muuma.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. It is very important, Right Honorable Speaker, to understand from the committee, because in Uganda, the cost of doing business is so high. And as a sector, as a committee dealing with this sector, they need to tell us what the Ministry of Trade is putting in place to ensure that the costs of doing business in Uganda are reduced. So many businesses, Right Honorable Speaker, are closing on a daily basis. And our people, because of the taxes, because of the other attendant costs of doing business, are running out of business. What measures are being put in place, Right Honorable Speaker, to reduce the cost of doing business? Second, Right Honorable Speaker, as you said earlier, there are so many substandard products. UNBS is doing this country a disservice by not enforcing standardized products, by not reducing counterfeits. The moment there are so many counterfeits and substandard products on the market, the traders lose a lot of money, because those ones who have genuine products cannot sell them, because UNBS, either at the entry level or by monitoring the local manufacturers, have failed to ensure that we have standardized products in this country, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, thirdly, we cannot talk about tourism without talking about the infrastructure, the roads, the tourism roads throughout the country. Even the roads, not only around the parks, but the roads going to those national parks are so bad.
Honorable colleagues, we are running program-based budgeting. Let's do program-based debate. Anything to do with infrastructure, let's wait for infrastructure. We can bring in tourism. Okay? That's Honorable Muuma.
Yeah, thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, my concern, I think, rotates around one of the recommendations made by the committee on provision of resources for recruitment. Most of the issues we are discussing here are to do with the capacity of Uganda National Bureau of Standards. They have very lean staff and structure to man their mandate. So we need to avail them with the requisite resources to be able to execute their work. Right Honorable Speaker, if you went to the countryside, UNBS has only excelled in terrorizing retail shops with weighing scales. That's why they are only visible. You can only see them terrorizing retail shops. Your weighing scale expired. Why haven't you updated? But when you look at counterfeits, my colleague has been talking about, you go to the supermarkets, we are consuming expired products in supermarkets. Most of the malls have got expired products, but yes, and drugs, but UNBS is not doing much to address such challenges. Right now, Speaker, I got express permission last week from Abim district, and the MP has also cleared me to share this. When I introduced myself in Abim that I come from the Chabazinga land, they attacked me that we do advertise small stones like rocks, and specifically I think they were looking at Kaguru Hill, ignoring beautiful sceneries in Abim, those nice rocks. So I want to appeal to the Minister for Tourism to begin coding such nice looking sceneries those mountains that they have in a beam. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Yes. Pachuto and Kugonza. Colleagues, don't mind. I know agriculture is coming up and you're going to stand up. So,
thank you, Right Honourable.
Maybe if you want to go away, but we are still here.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. And I want to thank the chairperson of the committee for the good report. Right Honourable Speaker, I want us to address our mind in this way. Right Honourable Speaker, this country, all the world over, is grappling with the difficult economies. We are grappling as a country in raising revenue, and yet we have so many potential undeveloped, untapped tourist sites. Right Honourable Speaker, if some of these tourist sites like the ones I have in Pakwach district, and perhaps all over the country, were developed, or local investors were supported to develop them, Right Honourable Speaker, we would enhance our revenue mobilization. Not only that, we would leverage the traders of these countries from the burden of high taxation. Right Honourable Speaker, how I pray that this sector is supported by this very parliament so that some of the potential tourism sites are developed sooner than later. Right Honourable Speaker, I want to talk about, on behalf of the traders of this country, especially those ones from West Nile. When I was studying commerce, Right Honourable Speaker, we learned of auxiliary of trade. And by that we mean the transport system, the insurance sector, the bank.
Thank you. Honourable Kugonza.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. I would like to thank the committee for the good report. When it comes to the aspect of tourism development, tourism survives very well when the circuits are well developed. In our country, we have so much relied on nature-based tourism, but I think some of the circuits need to be improved. For example, a tourist who has come to Uganda, traveling all the way from Kampala, going to Queen Elizabeth National Park using the Buvende route, traveling over 200 kilometers without interfacing with any other thing becomes boring. We need to support the private sector to invest, for example, in issues like wildlife sanctuaries, and that means we need to create incentives that will be able to attract the private players to invest in such areas. You can talk about issues like the snake parks. You can talk about also in some areas looking at cultural tourism. We have other things that have been neglected. For example, like we have not talked so much about caves. Like in other countries, there is a lot of tourism going around caves for those people who want even to do whatever they want to do with the caves. So I think we need to document all this that happens with us. And for example, even going through the Bunyoro sub-region, we have some of the things to do with our history. For example, just last week we celebrated 100 years after the death of King Kabalega. We could put up things like the monument of Kabalega in one of the areas, and this could be part of the attractions in this country. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Yeah, colleagues, under what rule? Okay.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, we are talking about unique features that attract a lot of tourism in this country.
Honourable colleague.
Right Honourable.
Please, I want discipline in this house. And you're a lawyer?
I'm a lawyer,
yeah,
yes.
Rule 84 is an parliamentary language. So I want your submission to be on that. So if you're not sure of a rule, just be honest to me. But when you say, yeah, you get it? So colleagues, I really want this to be orderly, okay? If you're not sure about a rule, please let me know, okay? So, Honourable Tim Giwi.
Thank you. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. First, I would like to thank the Minister of Tourism for constructing a good road for us from Masindi to Karuma, a very good one, which will actually promote tourism along Machishon Falls National Park. But, Right Honorable Speaker, I mainly wanted to talk about Uganda Tourism Board. I think actually the way we are focusing our channel in terms of marketing Uganda's tourism, it is something we need to actually look at again. Our neighbors here in Rwanda actually charge gorilla permits $1,400 per gorilla permit. In Uganda, we charge half the price at $700 US. But despite of that, actually Rwanda gets more tourists visiting their gorillas at a higher price of $1,400. Whereas us in Uganda, we actually have 12 gorilla families which can be visited. But in Rwanda, the same is not the same. So I'm actually thinking that the approach that Uganda Tourism Board is actually taking in marketing our tourist site must actually improve. We need to increase more funding. As Parliament, we actually do need to increase funding for marketing for Uganda Tourism Board. Rwanda is doing that, and actually they are reaping the prize of actually putting more money in promoting their country's tourism. In Uganda, that has failed. The second point I wanted to highlight is the non-tax revenue that is being collected by Uganda Tourism Board and also Uganda Wildlife Education Center. They have actually collected a lot of money, and right now, maybe that money will be used in other entities. I actually think that it is rightly so that entities which collect more money through NTRs, the money should be utilized within those entities in order to cover some of the shortfalls. All right.
Thank you. Honourable Minister for Trade. We are on your sector, and you've had members' issues. What's your comment? Honourable Minister for Tourism, as the one of trade, consults with the chair. Colleagues, I'm going to allow you on other, because you see we have agriculture. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. And I also want to add my voice to thank the committee for the report, but also to thank you in a special way, Right Honourable, because when we had challenges of funding, when our budget had been reduced by over 100 billion shillings, you came in and supported us. And so did the Committee of Tourism and Trade. So I want to thank them. Members have raised a number of issues. Then maybe I'll respond to a few and then conclude. Right Honourable members, Right Honourable Speaker and members, it is true human-wildlife conflict is a big problem. We've come to this house before. We've presented to you what it takes for us to put an end to this problem once and for all. Unfortunately, even the trenching that we looked at as one of the solutions is not as effective. But just to disagree with some member, the electric fence is effective, but it's quite costly. And that's why we are implementing it in phases. And according to the ministerial policy statement that we've presented, we've showed you that we shall be doing 57 kilometers in Queen, and 47 kilometers in Queen and 47 kilometers in Maction Falls. But of course, we shall not have worked on all the parks. So it's a challenge. If we had the financing, we'd do it. And we agree that prevention is better, because we don't even have enough resources to do the compensation. If you were to compensate 7,000 people, because the amount of money, for instance, if I just give you a simple scenario, if you look at the Uganda Wildlife Act that you passed in 2019, that only appropriates 2% of our gate collections to compensation. Now, if you look at what we have left now, we have around slightly less than 2 billion. Because of COVID, we're not collecting enough money. So we have around 2 billion to compensate around 7,000 claimants, both death, treatment, and it is little money. But the Act also says that Parliament can appropriate money to support this cause, but still it would be too much. And like the Speaker said, we wouldn't wish to continue compensating because the problem keeps getting out of hand. The best way forward would be for us to fence. The fence is effective. But we'll continue, of course, asking Parliament to support us. And I think the executive is where we can, we'll continue extending the fence. Now, on a number of issues that were raised to do with the monkeys a number of issues that were raised to do with monkeys. Right Honourable Speaker, and we've said it on the floor of this House, that in most districts we have what we call vermin officers that we train, that usually deal with these animals. And the cows, if you actually don't even need to come to, we only come in if the problem is too big and they need our support. But most of the districts have these officers that would put these animals, they know how to deal with them in case they are called into place. Now, my brother from the Elgon region, it's true, we went to Elgon together and visited the communities around the parks. And I remember we agreed the issues of the boundaries, because quite a number of people thought that because of the act then, we all agree now, the 2019 act does not allow for degazettement currently. But there are some areas where people had already settled, and we went and had a discussion with them that as much as we cannot come to Parliament now to request for degazation, but recognize the fact that you're already on that land, in some areas where we erroneously took some land from areas and considered it under the protected area of Mount Elgon, we agreed that we are not in contention, the people can stay on this land.
Honorable Minister, we are on matters which have an impact on the budget. Respond on matters that are rated financial. Those of policy nature, kind of we shall do.
Thank you. I was just trying to respond to all issues, but now let me just focus on what you've said. Now, Right Honourable Speaker, if you look at, and I want to thank the chair of the committee for the report. It's unfortunate that we've just gotten a copy of this report now as it's being presented. I understand the challenges, and probably would have wanted to engage more with the committee and see if, because there are a few issues that we may not have agreed on that the committee came up with. For instance, the reallocation from the 40 billion of the development budget to other activities where you have cut off around 17 billion. And in the committee report, they clearly show that the Minister of Tourism, out of the 26 billion that they had as a recurrent budget for this financial year, they're only getting 4 billion in the next financial year. So you'll have a deficit of around 21 billion. And we're intending to reduce off the 40 billion of development to cover up a gap in the recurrent. So now when you take away the 17 billion and we've not harmonized together with you as a committee, then it becomes a challenge for us going forward. So I think that's the only area where we see a problem. I think that the development of the source of the Nile, because what we are saying is we have so many products as a country, but I think there are those flagship products that we cannot, that we've been advocating to develop over a period of time. And now that we've gotten funding, I beg that we use this opportunity too. Reducing money from the source of the Nile, for instance, to do a fence maybe no work, to us wouldn't be the best priority. I think it's important that we source, because we are the only country in the whole world with the source of the Nile. So it's important that we develop these issues.
Thank you.
So I beg your indulgence, Chair. I don't know how we move forward, but for us our prayer is that the 40 billion stays intact, that some money is reallocated to the recurrent budget that was reduced, than reallocating this money.
Thank you. That's noted. Terego had a procedural matter. Terego?
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I move under Rule 70C. Right Honourable Speaker, we have a big investment, or what would bring a lot of money to West Nile, that is the white rhinos. Right Honourable Speaker, we have moved as West Nile on the floor of Parliament about taking back these white rhinos where they can multiply and bring tourism in that part of the region. But in the budget, Right Honourable Speaker, this has not been captured. Wouldn't this have been procedural right so that we have these white rhinos back in West Nile? Thank you.
Honourable Minister, do you have anything you want to say on that?
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. And I want to thank the member for the concern. I think if you look at the committee recommendation in their document, they say that the ceiling of UA should be lifted from the 106 billion so that they can be allowed to use the 33 billion that they already have collected. But subsequently, it will also move it to 140 billion. And if that is done, if Parliament grants that, we shall have some money to start the process of the relocation of the rhino to most of the protected areas.
Thank you. Now, colleagues, I'm sorry I'm going to be hard. There are opportunities where I become flexible, especially with procedure. Okay? But there is a time I want us to move, and procedure keeps holding us back. So, procedure is provided for under Rule 78, Sub-Rule 4. Procedure has to do with a member being on the floor and he or she breaks a certain rule. Okay? It is to do with a member on the floor. If there is no one on the floor, you can't stand up under procedure. And that member holding the floor must violate or break a certain rule. That's what a procedure provides for. But I'm usually flexible when we have time. But like now, when we are in a session of MPS, I try to be a bit more strict. So you would have to bear with me if we had finished this one. Okay? Chair, have you need someone cross-check with Chair whether they've indeed reconciled on figures? Because I can't put a question until we reconcile on figures, which was raised by Honorable Herbert Kashonji. Honorable Minister for Trade.
Thank you. One of the issues raised by members is access of capital. UDB still has high interest rates, and by the very fact that they get the money from the Bank of Uganda, and that is what they plead that it is, unless the interest rates at the UDB are lowered down, there will be a very difficult time for companies businesses that operate in Uganda to get cheap capital. Another one is the cost of electricity, instability of power, and also distribution of power throughout the country. That is one of the problems that we have, and the Minister of Energy is responsible for that. Telecommunication is another hump as the cost of doing business. At the same time, there is the UNBS, which was talked over. UNBS needs to be given more money for the sake of having more staff to be able to visit the different factories in the country, other than a few people roaming in the streets trying to find out the goods which are not suitable for use. And on this point, that's why we are asking for more staff to be able to visit factories at source where goods are being manufactured, see if the manufacturers are following the standards that are set on different products. As to the foreign goods, which I had members raising, the thing is that there is always also smuggling, and of which is a very hard thing to stop, and which becomes a police case. But otherwise, we have taken note of the members, and we have tried to address these notes by asking more money for straightening the business in the country.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are always happy to see you. Yes. Honorable Chair. Europe I had wanted to guide. Yes, I had wanted to guide that where the shadow minister is not a member of the committee, I will give them an opportunity. But where he's a member of the committee, I won't give them an opportunity. And also, since this is a consolidated report of the House, the ROP doesn't need to comment. The shadow minister maybe when he's not a member. Because I consider that if there is no minority report, the shadow minister and the opposition has agreed and their issues are incorporated. But ROP maybe wanted to say something.
Well, just to thank the chair and the sector ministries for being very effective, and you see they were the first to bring a report. To thank them for being effective. But also to say that the opposition statements were incorporated in this report, and we are happy about it.
Thank you.
And finally, to say that among the other challenges tourism gets is that once there is once the issue of good governance is not addressed, and there are arbitrary arrests and confusion in town, that also affects tourism. So it is very important that the government addresses that people don't see you arresting people in town, beating up suspects, and then they refuse to come to Uganda. I thought that should also be mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. He will always find a way. And how do, I hope you are going to ask for financing for that. Because we are handling the MPS, we are handling finances now. So any statement you make here, you conclude with the financing aspect. Honorable Mugora, I missed you. I had wanted you to submit on this, but you're a member of the committee. So, Honorable Chair, then we go to agriculture.
Right Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate members for the debate they had on this report. Right Honorable Speaker, just to comment on a few areas of concerns that were raised. On regional centers for OWEC, Right Honorable Speaker, when you look at our report on page 24, it clearly spells out how OWEC is moving to the different regions. And in the report on page 24, Right Honorable Speaker, you could see the list of regional proposed offices for OWEC, establishments for OWEC. Mbale has been chosen as the first OWEC regional center that the ministry has taken on it to establish. Then they'll move to other regional centers like Gulu and other areas that are elaborated in the report that I do not want to go to the detail, but it's on page 24 of our report, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues. Then on wildlife conflict is well elaborated on page 19 to 20. And Right Honorable Speaker, that is why OA is seeking for Parliament to raise their ceiling so that they are able to meet the cost of electric fence, well detailed on page 21 to 22. But also the committee observed that OA is receiving money from World Bank towards that project. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I think the main issue is to raise the ceiling for OA so that they are able to meet all that the members have talked about, because it is well captured in the report of the committee.
Thank you.
Right Honorable Speaker, on the figures as were raised on page 10, have been able to harmonize. Right Honorable. Indeed, when you add them up, it varies, and simply because, Right Honorable Speaker, the committee considered the superior document that was presented to this House in April, that came after the policy statement that was presented in March 15th. So the figures that the colleague is referring to were figures in the policy statement as presented in March 15th, but to appropriate, Right Honorable Speaker, the committee is supposed to consider the presentation of documents, in details of the documents that were presented to this House in the draft appropriation figures, which came later in the month of April, Right Honorable Speaker. And it is from these figures that the committee was able to arrive at the mentioned detailed figures under the different votes as I read. So the colleague was cited this, but I want to point it out clearly that those are figures that were presented in the policy statement that were laid on 15th of March, and later on, the figures that were presented in the draft appropriation figure is what the committee used to consider appropriation to these ministries. Right Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the good work. I think, Honorable Hubbard, this is very clear, because you see, the ministerial policy statement comes, and then after they bring draft estimates. So if the committee had gone with the figures in the draft, in the ministerial policy statement, then it would mean that it has not gone with an updated figure. So the updated figure is that one from draft estimates. That's where the inconsistency was. But thanks for bringing it out. Okay? So, colleagues, I want to thank you very much for the good work, and I want to congratulate the committee. Now, when your chair has spoken and what, we don't add on anything. I now put the question that the report of the Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry on the Ministerial Policy Statement for financial year 2023-2024 be adopted. Those in favor say aye, and the contrary nay. Aye. Thank you. The ayes have it. I now refer the report to the Committee on Budget for Reconciliation, Harmonization and Consolidation. And of course, we expect budget to report by statutory deadline is 30 years, but if you could do it earlier, our target is around 27, it will be much better. We got the Committee on Agriculture. Colleagues, we are still here. There is a lot of jam outside, so let's be doing work.
Report of the Committee on Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries on the Ministerial Policy Statement for financial year 2023/2024.
Chair.
Thank you very much. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, I beg to lay on table the report of the Committee on Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries on the Ministerial Policy Statement and Budget Estimates for the financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay. I also beg to lay the minutes of the meetings while considering the Ministerial Policy Statement and Budget Estimates for financial year 2023-2024. I beg to lay. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, in accordance with the Article 155(4) of the Constitution and Rule 1491 of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament, the Sectoral Committee on Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries considered and reviewed policy statements and budget estimates under its mandate. 2.0 on page 4 is about the methodology that the committee used. And I think, honorable colleagues, you can go through that. Right Honorable Speaker, on page 5, we have the scope and the votes under which the committee is reporting. And I don't know whether I should read through them. Vote 010, Ministry of Agriculture. Vote 121, Dairy Development Authority. Vote 125, NAGRIC and DB. Vote 142, NARO. Vote 152, NADS. Vote 155, CDO. Vote 160, Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Vote 601 to 999, local governments. The other contributing votes under agro-industrialization are underlined there. Vote 011, Ministry of Local Government. 015, Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. 019, Ministry of Water and Environment. 021, East African Community. 108, National Planning Authority. 122, KCCA. 154, Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Then votes 500, missions abroad. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, agriculture remains the mainstay of Uganda's economy, and the sector employs 68% of the total population. 70% are youth. In the fiscal year 2020-2021, the sector contributed 23.7% of GDP and 31% of export earnings.
just below industry at 26.18%, and services sector at 43.01%. Right Honorable Speaker, despite all the interventions by government to realize socio-economic transformation, the sector is still faced with many challenges, the major one being inadequate budget allocations. The limited budget allocation negatively impacts on the sector and affects the country's comparative advantage in the region. This further affects the provision of seeds and seedlings and other inputs to the farmers, which is vital in the improvement of agricultural production and productivity in the country. The sector budget will reduce, therefore, by 7.5%, that is Uganda shillings 88.2 billion in financial year 2023-24 compared to what was approved in financial year 2022-2023. Right Honorable Speaker, on page 8, table 2, on page 8, table 2, the table talks about the sector budget performance and budget allocation for financial year 2023-2024. The estimates Government of Uganda total amount is 680.14 billion. Then the total Government of Uganda plus external financing is 1,709 billion.33. By the end of quarter 2, only 365.2 billion had been spent, representing an absorption of 31.3%, way below the ideal 50% at half year. As I said earlier, the sector will reduce by 7.5% in financial year 2023-2024. The non-wage component will reduce by 62.8 billion or 28.7%, while Government of Uganda development will reduce by 78 billion. That is equivalent to 21.2%. Much as the total government funds will reduce by 14%, the external financing of the sector will grow by 5.9, equivalent of 22.4 billion. Right Honorable Speaker, Table 2 talks about the sector budget performance and budget allocations for financial year 2023-2024. I've repeated, I'm sorry. Sorry, Right Honorable Speaker, I meant Table 3. Table 3 talks about the budget overview of VOT 010, Ministry of Agriculture. This is just a comparison for the budget for financial year 2022-2023 and 2023-2024. The overall budget will grow by 5.2% to Uganda shillings 593.53 billion in financial year 2023-2024, as compared to Uganda shillings 564.39 billion that was approved in financial year 2022-2023. This is mainly attributed to a 5.9% rise in the external financing component of the vote. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, Table 4 talks about vote budget allocation by sub-programs, and the sub-programs are lined up there. And when you look at the sub-programs, the sub-program on animal resources has only a share of 5.4%, and that of fisheries resources has only 4.0%. Agricultural infrastructure and mechanization development has 25.7% of the share, and the crop resources 46.1%. Karamoja allowance. Right Honorable Speaker, during financial year 2023-2024, 46% of the votes budget will be allocated to crop resources, followed by agricultural infrastructure and mechanization development with the 26% of the budget. Right Honorable Speaker, Table 5 to Table 9 on pages 12 to 22 talks about budget overview for the different votes of the program. I think, honorable colleagues, you will look through them. Due to lack of time, I will not concentrate on that. Right Honorable Speaker, I request to go through to the observations and recommendations by the committee, which starts from page 22. On vote 010, Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, the committee observes with great concern that the country has no clear food security strategy and policy. The country has adopted ad hoc methods of handling anger-related crises whenever they erupt. In the financial year 2022-2023 alone, Cabinet approved 350 billion following the recent famine. MAIF and other agencies such as NAGRIC, NARO, NEC, UPDF, veterans, prisons were asked to use their available budget to produce food and animal feeds for the country. But up to now, government has not refunded the budget, hence affecting the respective agencies' implementation of the planned activities as per the approved budget and as per the mandate of the different entities that I have mentioned. The committee recommends as follows: that Uganda shillings 110.21 billion be provided as supplementary or additional funds to refund the agencies that use their own budget to implement 2022-2023 food security intervention. The committee also recommends that 150 billion that was approved by Cabinet be provided to fund large-scale farmers across the country who are already profiled by Ministry of Agriculture. By the time Cabinet took this decision, the season was already off for the large-scale farmers to be on board. The committee also recommends that government should develop a comprehensive, clear food and animal feed security strategy, regulations and policy to guide implementation in an event of famine, crisis, or any other calamities to avoid ad hoc way the issue is being handled. The committee further recommends 400 billion be provided annually for the next 2 years for food security and related interventions, that is food production silos, food reserves and stocks. And that is where we fall back to whenever we are hit by famine. On parish development model, MAIF is responsible for Pillar 1. However, the committee notes that with the concern that no funds have been provided in financial year 2023-2024 budget to enable MAIF handle this mandate. The committee therefore recommends that 5 billion be provided to facilitate policy and guidelines on enterprise selection, value addition, and market linkages for all agricultural produce. On duplication of activities, the committee observes that some of MAIF planned deliverables for financial year 2023-2024 are best delivered by other agencies. For example, the distribution of 2,945 goats at a cost of 2.8 billion, purchase and distribution of cashew nut seedlings to a tune of 1.8 billion, and Uganda shillings 7.2 billion support to government agencies and private seedling multipliers in the production of seed, stocking and planting material.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.